Have you ever watched a massive public scandal just unfold right in front of you?
Oh, like on your timeline, just endlessly playing on the news.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're watching it, and you get this nagging sensation in the back of your mind that you are only getting, like, a fraction of the actual story.
Right, the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. I mean, you see the headlines, you see the outrage, everyone is rushing to pick a side, but you're sitting there wondering how millions of people have suddenly become absolute experts on an event none of them actually witnessed.
Well, it's a collective hallucination, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we stare at a shadow cast on a wall, and instead of turning around to see what object is actually blocking the light, we just start screaming at each other about the shape of the shadow.
Right.
We're convinced we have all the information just because the information is loud.
Wow, that's the exact feeling we're tackling today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We have a set of source materials today that completely dismantle how you and I consume public controversies.
Yeah, celebrity cancellations, or even just, the basic conflicts we navigate in our own offices.
So true. So our primary source today is this sprawling, incredibly dense interview published on July 6, 2026.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is. The interviewer is a magazine editor named Ojino, and the subject is this enigmatic, fiercely articulate commentator who writes under the pen name Quiet Beef.
Yeah, the Japanese characters for that are literally Silent Cow or Quiet Beef.
Right. And get this, the setting for this intense dissection of Japanese society is a place called the Armpit Cafe in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Which is just, the geography there is actually vital to the text.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. You have this deeply specific, hyper-local Japanese cultural scandal being analyzed by a Japanese expat sitting thousands of miles away. In a cafe with a faintly ridiculous name, no less.
Armpit Cafe, yeah.
Right. And physical distance often provides psychological distance. It strips away the immediate emotional heat of a local scandal.
So he could just look at it objectively.
Exactly. It allows the observer to view the machinery of the controversy rather than just getting swept up in the emotion of the crowd.
And the machinery is what we really care about here. On the surface, Quiet Beef and Ojino are sitting down to discuss this massive harassment scandal that is currently dominating the Japanese news cycle.
Right. The one involving the two prominent actors, Aya Hashimoto and Jiro Sato.
Yeah, and it heavily implicates the major television network, Fuji TV.
Yeah.
In fact, right around the time of this interview, Fuji TV had just issued a highly publicized apology.
And a supposedly definitive report on the incident.
Right, right. The media is in a total frenzy. But Quiet Beef isn't really interested in playing tabloid detective, is he?
Not in the slightest. If someone is looking for a verdict on what Jiro Sato or Aya Hashimoto actually said to each other backstage, they're going to be severely disappointed by this text.
Because he doesn't care about the gossip?
No, he uses the celebrity spat purely as a diagnostic tool.
Yeah.
He treats the scandal like a blood draw, using it to expose the toxic reality of modern corporate management. Yeah, and the frightening neuroscience driving internet mobs, and a very sobering sociological shift.
Which is what?
The complete collapse of face-to-face conflict resolution in modern society.
Okay, let's unpack this, because he starts by attacking the very foundation of the public's outrage.
He really does.
When the editor asks him for a straightforward opinion on who is right and who is wrong, Quiet Beef immediately throws up a brick wall.
Yeah.
His core premise is that unless there is continuous, unedited video or audio evidence of an interaction, nobody except the people in the room actually knows the truth, period.
And it sounds so obvious, right? But he insists that acknowledging our own total ignorance is the mandatory starting point for any discussion.
Which is so hard for people to do online.
Oh, impossible. And he even pushes that boundary further given the technological reality of 2026.
Right, with AI and everything.
Exactly. He notes that with the proliferation of AI, even video and audio evidence can be fabricated. So the bar for achieving absolute objective truth is practically insurmountable now.
So what are we actually arguing about then?
Well, he demands that we recognize what we are actually consuming. We aren't consuming the truth. We are consuming a narrative constructed by whatever entity possesses the largest megaphone.
Okay, and in this specific Japanese scandal, those megaphones belong to a massive tabloid called Bunshin, Fuji TV's corporate PR department, and Hashimoto's talent agency.
All the heavy hitters.
Right. And they have all essentially harmonized their messaging against Sato.
Yeah, they're all singing the same tune.
Exactly. So if you are an average citizen looking at this situation, Sato looks entirely guilty, because every official channel is pointing the finger at him.
And this synchronization of media messaging is exactly what triggers Quiet Beef's skepticism.
Really, just the fact that they agree.
Yeah, he deeply distrusts consensus. When he sees massive institutional alignment pushing a single narrative, his immediate instinct is to assume the public is being blinded.
Wow.
He argues that loud official narratives have the power to completely overwrite reality for the majority of the population.
Which leads to a comparison in the text that initially completely derailed my reading of it.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah. When asked about this Japanese actor scandal, Quiet Beef suddenly pivots and starts talking about American politics.
Very specifically, the 2020 U.S. presidential election.
Right. And I want to jump in right here and speak directly to you, the listener. As your guide through this source material, we need to be crystal clear.
Absolutely.
We are strictly impartial. We are not validating, endorsing, or taking sides on any of the political claims Quiet Beef makes here. We are solely here to report what is in the text.
We're just analyzing the underlying mechanics of why he uses this specific historical event to explain a celebrity dispute.
Exactly. That framing is essential. So looking at his methodology in the text, Quiet Beef states that watching the media apparatus crush Sato feels identical to how he felt watching the 2020 election unfold from his vantage point in the U.S.
Yeah, he claims his wild intuition allowed him to see through what he describes as a highly coordinated manufactured media narrative.
So just neutrally reporting the text, what exactly does he claim he saw?
Well, Quiet Beef outlines a series of specific assertions. He claims that President Biden was medically dysfunctional to a degree that impacted his ability to perform the presidency.
Okay.
And that he was deeply unpopular with the electorate. According to Quiet Beef, this lack of popularity was effectively camouflaged by COVID-19 lockdowns.
Which he argues provided a structural excuse for the absence of large-scale rallies.
Exactly, that's his claim.
He also brings up the media and intelligence communities, specifically naming Anthony Blinken in the editor's notes, right?
Yes, he does. Quiet Beef asserts that mainstream media outlets and high-ranking intelligence figures actively colluded to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Right.
He argues that the story was deliberately framed as a complete conspiracy theory to shield the Biden campaign, despite later being authenticated.
Okay, so that's his view on the media suppression.
Right. And finally, he expresses a firm conviction that widespread election fraud occurred, and that this combination of media suppression and systemic fraud robbed Donald Trump of a highly probable victory.
Okay. Again, purely as a window into the author's mind, what is the architectural link he is building here?
Yeah.
Why connect a backstage argument at Fuji TV to allegations of U.S. election interference?
The link is the sheer, overwhelming power of a synchronized narrative.
Okay, how so?
Quiet Beef is arguing that if the institutions controlling the flow of information, whether that's television networks, social media platforms, or intelligence agencies, if they all decide to sing the exact same song, the average citizen doesn't stand a chance.
They just get steamrolled.
Exactly. The public absorbs the immense sound wave and mistakes its volume for its validity.
Wow, mistaking volume for validity.
Right. He explicitly states that the Japanese public looking at the Sato scandal is existing in a state of blindness, which he says is entirely parallel to how he perceives the American public was blinded in 2020.
So he's saying that the truth doesn't actually matter if the delivery system for the lie is big enough.
Precisely.
If the network, the tabloid, and the agency all say Sato is the villain, Sato becomes the villain in the public consciousness, completely regardless of what actually happened in that room.
Yeah, the facts become irrelevant.
But if objective truth is so easily buried, what are we left with?
To answer that, Quiet Beef references a principle from a Japanese manga called Do Not Say Mystery. There's a character in it named Totnu-kun who operates on a very specific philosophy regarding human conflict.
I'm not familiar with that manga. What is the philosophy?
Totnu-kun argues that there is no such thing as a single objective truth in any dispute between people.
No objective truth at all.
Well, there are undeniable physical facts, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is entirely subjective. If you and I witness the exact same event, my truth and your truth are going to diverge wildly.
Because we're different people.
Exactly, because we're processing the physical facts through entirely different emotional filters, past traumas, and personal biases.
Ah, okay. So the facts are like the raw data, but the truth is the software running the data. And my software is completely different from your software.
That is a perfect way to put it. And Quiet Beef embraces this. He argues that because everyone has their own distinct truth, the only way society avoids descending into constant violence is by utilizing a court of law.
Right, because we need an arbiter.
But he doesn't view a court judgment as a declaration of divine truth either. He literally calls it a compromise that human brains can just barely tolerate.
Just a compromise.
Yeah. A court strictly arbitrates facts because, as he says, the truth is known only to God.
The truth is known only to God. That drastically changes how you view a trending topic on social media.
It really does.
It strips away all that righteous indignation. If the truth is known only to God, and we only have access to a heavily distorted media narrative, why are millions of people so incredibly eager to play judge and jury?
That's a great question.
Like, how do we end up instantly labeling one actor a hero and the other a monster?
Well, it's because human beings despise ambiguity. We crave easy heuristics to navigate the world. We want good guys and bad guys.
Right, it's easier that way.
And Quiet Beef is remarkably transparent about this mechanism. He doesn't just critique the public's rush to judgment, he subjects his own brain to the exact same scrutiny.
Yeah, he looks at the labels. The public is using Hashimoto as left-wing instigator, Sato as the tragic good guy, and he dismisses all of it as pure noise.
Total noise.
But then he turns around and openly confesses exactly why he personally favors Sato. And his reasons have absolutely zero to do with the facts of the harassment case.
It's just a fascinating display of self-awareness. He details his impression of Jiro Sato, and it's built entirely on nostalgia and personal projection.
Yeah.
He remembers watching Sato perform in small, B-tier underground theater productions years ago. He fondly recalls Sato delivering these relentless ad-lib soliloquies that used to make Quiet Beef just laugh out loud.
And he remembers following Sato's old Twitter account.
Right. And he even mentions a shared psychological trait. Quiet Beef feels a deep personal affinity for Sato because Sato has been public about having obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Wow. So he relates to him on a neurodivergent level.
Exactly. His positive assessment of Sato is an amalgamation of comedy, fond memories, and a sense of neurodivergent kinship. None of those things make Sato innocent of harassment.
No, not at all.
But they make Quiet Beef want him to be innocent.
Right. And his assessment of Ai Hashimoto is the exact inverse. It's almost comical how little he bases his judgment on.
It really is.
He admits he really only knows her from a wildly popular morning drama called Ama-chan from years ago.
Yeah.
But the most revealing part is when he admits to trying to watch a more recent experimental drama she starred in.
Oh, this part is amazing. He says he lasted exactly 5 minutes before deciding the directing and her acting were terrible, and he turned it off.
And to add a layer of utter absurdity, he casually mentions he was watching those 5 minutes on an illegal streaming site. He is judging her professional and moral worth based on 5 minutes of pirated footage.
It totally exposes the flimsy, ridiculous scaffolding that holds up our public opinions, but the text captures an even more raw demonstration of this.
Oh, the filterless moment.
Yeah, there is a moment in the interview, a completely unedited, filterless moment that perfectly illustrates how fast the brain rushes to cruelty.
This is the moment in the transcript that made me sit up in my chair. He is mid-sentence discussing Hashimoto, and suddenly he takes a wildly inappropriate shot at her physical appearance.
He does.
He compares her facial features to a poorly made Melania Trump. It's incredibly mean-spirited and completely subjective.
It is. But the crucial part of that exchange isn't the insult itself, it's the immediate aftermath. In the very next breath, Quiet Beef catches himself.
He panics, basically.
He really does. He apologizes profusely to the editor, Ojino, and he explicitly acknowledges that commenting on someone's physical appearance in a professional context is the actual definition of harassment.
He recognizes his own hypocrisy in real time. He blames it on his own neurodivergent traits, calling it a lapse into fetulous talk, but he doesn't excuse it.
No, and he leaves it in the interview to prove a point.
Which is?
He is proving that even a person actively philosophizing about the dangers of subjective truth and media manipulation is still a prisoner to their own petty snap judgments.
We all are.
Exactly. The human brain is a flaw-detecting machine. We are all deeply compromised arbiters of character.
Which brings us to how we evaluate character in the public square. There's a specific anecdote circulating in the media to defend Sato's character that the editor brings up.
The BMW story.
The BMW story, right. So the story goes that Sato bought a brand new luxury BMW. He's on set, and a staff member is guiding him into a parking spot.
A very stressful situation.
Very, and the staff member gives terrible directions, and Sato ends up scraping his brand new car against something.
A situation that would cause almost anyone, let alone a high-status actor, to lose their temper.
Right. But according to the story, Sato doesn't yell. He doesn't demand the staff member be fired. He just smiles, makes a self-deprecating joke, and brushes it off so the staff member doesn't feel terrible.
Right.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here. You're telling me that story doesn't mean anything. An actor keeping his cool when his new BMW gets scratched seems like incredibly strong, objective evidence that he is a patient, decent human being.
Well, it is a heartwarming story, and it's exactly the kind of heuristic the public clings to. But Quiet Beef flatly rejects it.
Why?
He classifies that story as absolute meaningless noise.
How could a demonstration of empathy under pressure be meaningless noise?
Because it is a microscopic fraction of a data set. Quiet Beef introduces what I consider the defining metaphor of this entire analysis.
Okay, lay it on me.
He argues that trying to evaluate a human being based on a single anecdote is fundamentally arrogant because every single human being is a 7,000 trillion page private novel.
A 7,000 trillion page novel. I mean, the scale of that number is meant to be incomprehensible.
Precisely. Think about the complexity of your own life. You have a specific persona you present to your boss, right?
Sure.
You have a completely different persona when you are arguing with your spouse. You have a face when you are terrified, a face when you are grieving, a face when you are magnanimous after a minor car scrape.
And a face when you are operating on 3 hours of sleep after a 14-hour shoot.
Exactly. We contain multitudes. We have moments of incredible grace and moments of profound cruelty.
So true.
So when you read a tabloid article about the BMW incident, you are reading exactly one page out of a 7,000 trillion page book.
Just one page.
Quiet Beef's argument is that the public reads that single page, arrogantly slams the massive book shut, and declares, I know exactly who this character is. He is the hero.
Or conversely, they read one negative page and declare this person is fundamentally evil.
Yes, it's an illusion of understanding.
So who actually understands them?
Quiet Beef suggests that the only people who might truly understand the unknowable depths of human nature are people like police officers, seasoned prosecutors, or prison guards.
People dealing with extremes.
People who see human beings at their absolute most desperate, most contradictory, and most complex. They know you cannot summarize a soul with an anecdote.
Right.
So when the public weaponizes these tiny snippets of information to wage a moral crusade against a stranger, they are operating on a foundation of profound arrogance.
But if everyone acknowledges this is just a novel, why is the reaction so violent? If judging someone on a few pages is arrogant, what happens when millions of people engage in that arrogance simultaneously, aided by algorithms designed to amplify outrage?
Yeah, that leads us to Quiet Beef's warning, which completely shifts the tone of the interview.
It gets really dark.
He stops philosophizing and gets very grave. He looks at the sheer volume of hatred being directed at these two actors online and tells the editor that this is no longer just gossip.
It's dangerous.
The concentration of vitriol is so intense that he genuinely fears one of the actors might take their own life. He notes chillingly that it is only by chance that no one has died yet in this specific scandal.
That is heavy. He contextualizes this danger by defining the modern internet as the simultaneous two-way era. How does that differ from what we had before?
Well, if we look back 20 or 30 years, the media landscape was a one-way street. A massive publication like Bunchen held a monopoly on distribution.
Right.
If they decided to run an expose on you, they fired the missile, and you had virtually no way to deploy countermeasures on a mass scale.
It was dictatorial. If this Sato scandal had broken in 1995, Sato would have been instantly buried under the weight of the tabloid circulation. He wouldn't have had a platform to defend himself.
Correct. The advent of the internet and social media fractured that monopoly. It gave the individual a megaphone.
So Sato could just tweet.
Exactly. Sato can log onto an app, bypass the tabloid editors entirely, and present his side of the story to millions of people simultaneously. That is the democratizing, positive aspect of the two-way era.
But democratization has a dark side.
A deeply dangerous one, because while it allows the accused to speak directly to the public, it also allows the public to bypass every journalistic filter, every societal norm of decency, and speak directly to the individual.
It removes all the barriers.
It allows a mob of millions to hurl what Quiet Beef brilliantly terms amygdala direct foulballs.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to focus on that phrase, amygdala direct fastballs. We are moving past media theory here and getting into the actual mechanics of how social media exploits human biology.
We are. The amygdala is an incredibly old primitive structure deep within the brain. Its primary function is survival.
The lizard brain.
Right, the lizard brain. It processes fearful and threatening stimuli and triggers the fight or flight response. When early humans saw a rustling in the bushes, they didn't have time to logically deduce if it was the wind or a tiger.
They just ran.
The amygdala instantly flooded their system with adrenaline to make them run.
It's an evolutionary override switch. It completely bypasses the prefrontal cortex, the modern logical part of the brain that handles nuance, empathy, and consequence.
Exactly. And social media platforms are architecturally designed to exploit that override switch.
How so?
When a user scrolls past a headline designed to trigger outrage, their amygdala fires. They feel a sudden surge of threat or injustice. And because digital interfaces have removed all physical friction from communication, that user doesn't have to pause, reflect, or draft a thoughtful response.
They just type in hit send.
They simply convert that raw, primitive surge of emotion into a hateful sentence and fire it directly at the target's digital inbox.
Man, it's like navigating a society where all the traffic lights have been removed and every car is just accelerating based on raw impulse. Like walking through a zoo where the animals are just constantly throwing things at you.
That's a great analogy.
If you are the target of a cancellation, you aren't receiving thoughtful critiques of your actions. You are just standing at the bottom of a digital canyon, while millions of people hurl the raw exhaust of their fight-or-flight responses at your head.
It creates an environment dominated by simple, short-sentence thinking. Nuance requires the prefrontal cortex, which requires time and energy. Outrage is instantaneous and biologically cheap.
So if the architecture of the internet is inherently designed to facilitate this lizard brain pile-on, how does anyone survive it?
It's tough.
If you're an actor or just a regular person who suddenly becomes the main character on Twitter for a day, how do you protect your psyche? Quiet Beef offers a surprisingly practical, if somewhat cynical, defense mechanism.
He offers it specifically to the editor, Ogino, who admits that simply reading the horrible comments online is severely affecting his own mental health.
Yeah, secondhand stress.
Quiet Beef warns that if you engage with digital vitriol emotionally, your brain physically absorbs that stress. You take neurological damage from other people's amygdala responses.
So what's his prescribed cognitive defense?
It's to radically detach. He tells Ogino that when he sees these hateful posts, he needs to literally laugh them off and tell himself, the lower animals are mimicking human speech again.
Wow, the lower animals are mimicking human speech again. Oh, it can't be helped. They're just lower animals. I mean, it sounds incredibly elitist and condescending on the surface.
It does sound bad, yeah.
But therapeutically, it is a highly effective cognitive reframing technique, right?
Absolutely.
How does calling someone a lower animal help?
Because it removes the peer-to-peer sting of the insult. If you view the person attacking you as an equal, their words carry the weight of social rejection, which is deeply painful to humans.
We want to be accepted by our peers.
Right. But by explicitly categorizing the mob as operating entirely from their primitive, unthinking lizard brains, you build a psychological glass wall. You aren't being insulted by a fellow citizen. You are simply observing a biological reflex.
You are watching a dog bark at a passing car.
Exactly. It's loud, but it isn't a critique of the car's engineering.
It strips the hate of its power. You survive the zoo by remembering you are separated from the enclosures.
Right.
But while Quiet Beef is giving us the tools to survive the mob, he makes a critical pivot here. He argues that the mob, in all its primal fury, is actually screaming at the completely wrong people.
The wrong people entirely.
The individuals, Jiro Sato and Ai Hashimoto, are not the architects of this disaster.
This is the turning point of the text. Quiet Beef completely exonerates the actors from systemic blame and shifts the entire weight of responsibility directly onto the shoulders of management.
Specifically, the production and executive management at Fuji TV.
Yep. And to explain exactly how they failed, he constructs an analogy that I think should be taught in every corporate HR department.
The orchestra analogy. Let's really look at the mechanics of this because it takes a messy human conflict and distills it into pure structural physics.
Okay, let's visualize a professional orchestra preparing for a concert. In this scenario, Fuji TV is not a musician. They are the conductor and the management of the concert hall. They own the venue, they hire the talent, and they are solely responsible for arranging the space to ensure harmony.
So they set the stage.
Right. Jiro Sato is a musician. Specifically, he plays the trombone. Ai Hashimoto is also a musician. She plays the bassoon, or the faggot, and her chair has been positioned by management directly in front of Sato's chair.
A trombone sitting directly behind a bassoon. I can already see the physics problem here.
The conflict is entirely structural. A trombone requires physical space to operate. The musician has to extend the slide forward to hit the notes.
Right, the slide has to go somewhere.
But because of how the management set up the chairs, every single time Sato plays his instrument properly and extends the slide, it hits the back of Hashimoto's head as she is trying to play her bassoon.
It's an impossible situation for the musicians. Sato can't stop playing the trombone, and Hashimoto shouldn't have to endure being hit in the head while she works.
Exactly. So what is the logical progression? The bassoon player goes to the management and complains, "The trombone slide keeps hitting me. I need you to address this."
And the solution is obvious.
The solution is physical, immediate, and irrefutable. The conductor needs to step down from the podium, physically move the chairs 3 feet apart so the instruments no longer overlap, and let the professionals do their jobs.
But that requires direct intervention. And as Quiet Beef points out, direct intervention is exactly what modern corporate management is terrified of.
They hate it.
Instead of moving the chairs, Fuji TV's management essentially left the chairs exactly where they were, started the concert, and then acted utterly appalled when a fight broke out in the woodwind section.
It is profound management malpractice.
Yeah.
Quiet Beef diagnoses exactly why this happens, specifically within Japanese corporate culture. He points to the failure of the telephone game.
How does the telephone game cause a harassment scandal?
It's about the dilution of boundaries. Let's assume Hashimoto made a very clear, bounded request to a lower-level manager. Something like, "Please instruct Sato to stop the specific behavior. It is crossing a line."
Okay, very clear.
In a functional system, the manager delivers that clear boundary. But in a culture terrified of friction, the message gets passed through a chain of middlemen directors, producers, agent representatives.
And at every link in the chain, someone tries to soften the blow. They don't want to be the bad guy, delivering a harsh critique to a star actor.
So they abstract the instruction. They file down the sharp edges of the complaint. By the time the message finally reaches Sato's team, it has been stripped of all specific gravity.
It just becomes vague.
Exactly. A hard boundary, like, do not cross this line, morphs into a fluffy, meaningless corporate sentiment like, let's all just be mindful of the atmosphere on set and try to work well together.
Be mindful doesn't tell a trombone player to pull a slide back. It's an illusion of management.
Exactly.
The executives get to tell themselves they addressed the issue without ever actually doing the uncomfortable work of mediating a conflict. But wait, I have to push back here.
Okay, go ahead.
If the management is so cowardly and useless, why didn't Sato just handle it himself? If I have a problem with a coworker and my boss won't fix it, the mature thing to do is walk over to their desk, or in this case, Hashimoto's dressing room, and say, "Hey, I hear there's tension. Let's talk this out like adults."
And according to the reports circulating in the media, that is exactly what Sato attempted to do. He went to her dressing room to engage in a direct one-on-one negotiation.
Right.
But Quiet Beef points out that in the modern corporate landscape, that instinct is a fatal error. Attempting to bypass the chain of command to confront a coworker directly is, in the eyes of a modern league or HR department, an act of harassment itself.
Try to talk it out is considered harassment. That feels completely counterintuitive.
It feels counterintuitive if you ignore power dynamics. Quiet Beef cites a strict rule laid out by the renowned Japanese playwright and director Koki Mitani.
What's the rule?
Mitani's rule for modern productions is absolute. Actors shouldn't deal with it directly.
Why? Why can't they just talk?
Because of the inherent volatility of direct confrontation in a professional setting. Quiet Beef compares it to a common urban noise dispute. Imagine you live in an apartment building and the tenant above you is playing deafening music at 2 a.m.
Very annoying.
Historically, you might have marched upstairs and banged on their door to complain.
Which people still do.
And in modern society, it is the absolute most dangerous thing you can do. You have no idea who is behind that door, what state of mind they are in, or how they will react to a perceived threat.
That's true. You just don't know.
A simple request to turn down the music can instantly escalate into a screaming match, or tragically, physical violence.
So the socially accepted protocol is to outsource the conflict. You call the building superintendent or you call the police.
You utilize a specialized third party to act as a buffer. Even if calling the management takes longer and feels frustratingly bureaucratic, it is the only mechanism designed to ensure physical and professional safety.
Because they're the neutral party.
Right. By knocking on Hashimoto's dressing room door, Sato bypassed the police, the producers and HR representatives, and initiated a direct confrontation. Quiet Beef expresses deep disappointment that an industry veteran like Sato forgot this fundamental rule of modern survival.
I understand the logic of the HR framework, but listening to this, it's hard not to feel a profound sense of loss. We grew up romanticizing the idea of hashing things out.
Yeah, the good old days.
Two people having a disagreement, grabbing a beer, talking it through face to face, and shaking hands at the end of the night. It felt honorable. It felt like community.
Quiet Beef anticipates that exact nostalgia. He acknowledges that there was a time when direct face-to-face resolution was not only possible, but was the celebrated standard.
Right, yeah.
But his sociological analysis of why that era is permanently dead is arguably the most brilliant part of the entire interview.
He specifically points to the evolution of post-bubble Japan to explain this death of direct communication. Let's dig into that.
Okay, so we have to understand the illusion that held society together prior to the 1990s. During the economic miracle and the bubble era, there was an underlying unspoken psychological contract in Japan.
Oh.
A massive, overwhelmingly homogenous middle class existed. Because of that economic and cultural uniformity, there is a deeply ingrained assumption that we are all the same Japanese people.
There was a shared baseline, a universal operating system of common sense, etiquette, and values.
Exactly. And because everyone implicitly believed they were running on the same operating system, they believed in the power of dialogue. The rating philosophy was, if we just sit down and talk, we will inevitably understand each other because we share the same core foundation.
But the bubble burst. And the ensuing decades of economic stagnation didn't just hurt bank accounts. They shattered that cultural baseline.
The post-bubble era, the lost decades, created massive, entrenched divisions that had never existed on that scale before.
Like what kind of division?
Yeah. You suddenly had a rigid class divide between secure, lifetime corporate employees and precarious, temporary dispatch workers. You had extreme generational friction between executives who remembered the boom years and young contractors who only knew austerity.
The homogeneity was a myth that finally cracked.
The baseline was obliterated. People are no longer running on the same operating system.
Wow.
What constitutes common sense to a 60-year-old network executive is viewed as archaic or actively offensive to a 22-year-old camera assistant. Therefore, the old method of talk and will understand each other is functionally impossible.
Because they're speaking different languages, essentially.
You cannot negotiate directly when you don't share a vocabulary of reality. Quiet Beef accepts this as a tragic but irreversible evolution. Direct, unmediated conflict resolution is dead.
Which traps us in a terrifying paradox.
Yeah.
If we are no longer socially permitted or sociologically equipped to resolve conflicts directly with each other, we are entirely dependent on management to act as the mediator. But what happens when the management class is profoundly, systemically incompetent?
That paradox is the engine of the public's rage. Why are millions of everyday citizens, people who will never meet these actors, dedicating hours of their lives to screaming about this scandal online?
Right.
Quiet Beef theorizes that the Sato Hashimoto scandal is not actually about Sato or Hashimoto. It is a massive societal proxy war.
A proxy war against who?
Against the entire concept of authority. The public is furious at their own economic reality. They are furious at the stagnation of the Japanese government. And most acutely, they are taking the white-hot, suppressed anger they feel toward their own toxic bosses and useless HR departments, and they are projecting it directly onto the executives at Fuji TV.
That resonates so deeply. Almost everyone listening to this has experienced a workplace dynamic where the frontline employees, the people actually doing the labor, dealing with the clients, navigating the day-to-day chaos, are left completely unsupported.
While the executives sit safely in air-conditioned boardrooms.
Completely detached from the reality of the floor.
Quiet Beef zeroes in on this dynamic by examining the fundamental philosophy of executive compensation. It asks a basic question. Why does a corporate executive or a network president get paid a vastly exorbitant salary while the young actor, the lighting technician, or the administrative assistant makes a fraction of that amount?
The corporate myth is that the executive is simply smarter or works harder.
But that's not the actual contract. The massive salary is hazard pay.
Hazard pay, exactly. The implicit moral contract of executive compensation is that they are paid to bear the ultimate risk. Their singular job is to manage the environment and protect the workers.
Yes.
And if a systemic failure occurs, if the trombone hits the bassoon, the executive is supposed to step up to the podium, take the bullet, claim full responsibility, and resign.
Right. The reason they are paid millions of yen is so that when they inevitably have to fall on their sword and face unemployment, they have a financial safety net to survive.
They are paid to be the shock absorbers for the company.
But Fuji TV, and arguably modern corporate culture at large, has completely inverted this moral contract. Quiet Beef labels this toxic management.
How does that play out?
Management forces the frontline workers, the talent and the crew, to navigate an unmanaged, dangerous environment and do all the heavy lifting. And when an inevitable collision happens, does the executive step forward and take the blame?
Never. They throw the worker out the window to save themselves.
In Japanese corporate parlance, it is known as cutting the lizard's tail.
Oh, that's descriptive.
When a predator grabs a lizard by the tail, the lizard simply detaches the tail and runs away, leaving the appendage behind to be eaten.
And Fuji TV treats its frontline talent as expendable tails.
Yes. When the internet mob the predator attacks, the executives don't defend their people. They issue a hollow, sterilized PR statement saying, "We did our best to facilitate a good environment, but this independent contractor acted poorly, so we are severing ties."
Unbelievable.
The contractor's career is destroyed, but the body of the corporation survives, and the executives keep their jobs and their bonuses.
It is cowardice masquerading as public relations. And Quiet Beef points out that Fuji TV is a repeat offender. He notes that the network learned absolutely nothing from a remarkably similar historical scandal involving Masahiro Nakai.
Yeah, they seem structurally incapable of self-reflection.
To explain this blindness, Quiet Beef diagnoses the executive board with the Dunning-Kruger effect. I want to make sure we understand exactly how he's applying that here, because Dunning-Kruger usually just means someone who is stupid thinks they are smart.
It's slightly more nuanced than that. The Dunning-Kruger effect describes a state where an individual is so profoundly incompetent at a specific task that they actually lack the mental framework or vocabulary required to recognize their own incompetence.
Wow, they don't even know what they don't know.
Right. Quiet Beef is saying that Fuji TV executives are so thoroughly uneducated about what true corporate social responsibility means in the modern era, they literally cannot perceive their own failure.
So they think they did a good job.
They genuinely believe that firing an actor and issuing a polished apology letter is good management. They don't possess the capacity to realize they have completely abandoned their duty to protect the humans working for them.
And Quiet Beef isn't just offering a philosophical critique here. He makes a hard pivot into business analysis and predicts that this toxic cowardice is going to lead to literal corporate doomsday for Fuji TV.
He lays out a timeline for the network's collapse that is staggering.
Let's talk about that timeline.
Well, he contextualizes the scandal within the broader macroeconomic reality of Japan. The nation is facing a rapidly shrinking, aging population. Simultaneously, traditional broadcast television is experiencing a catastrophic hemorrhage of viewership.
Because everyone's online now.
The era of families gathering around the TV at 8 p.m. is over. He notes the grim reality that Fuji TV is currently struggling to even secure double-digit ratings for its flagship programs.
So you have a shrinking consumer base, an outdated medium, and you combine that with a corporate culture that actively sacrifices its own talent to internet mobs. That is a cocktail for absolute collapse.
Quiet Beef boldly predicts that due to this toxic confluence of factors, Fuji TV might be the very first major broadcast network forced into liquidation or dissolution within the next 5 to 10 years.
He actually points to a specific financial move that suggests the hollowing out has already begun.
Yes, he relies on his memory of financial news, alleging that Fuji TV has already sold off its only reliably profitable division, its real estate holdings, to the Murakami Fund.
That's a well-known activist investment group?
Exactly. If that is true, it means the network no longer has a diversified financial safety net. They are stripped down to being purely a content creation and talent management company.
As the Sato Hashimoto scandal brutally demonstrates, their talent management is fundamentally broken.
Which leads directly to a massive casting crisis. This is the death spiral of a toxic organization. Why would any top-tier bankable star ever agree to work for a network that has a proven track record of throwing its talent to the wolves the second a controversy arises?
They won't. Self-preservation kicks in.
Quiet Beef references industry rumors suggesting that Fuji TV had to scramble through a humiliating string of rejections from major stars before they finally managed to cast Hashimoto and Sato for this current project.
Wow. They were like the last resorts.
The talent pool is actively migrating away from the danger zone. If a network cannot attract top-tier talent because its internal culture is toxic, it cannot produce compelling content. If it has no content, it has no advertisers.
And if it has no advertisers, it ceases to exist. The progression of this text is just breathtaking. We started this deep dive sitting in a cafe in Hoboken, looking at what seemed like a petty, isolated backstage argument between two actors.
Right.
And through Quiet Beef's analytical lens, we have watched that argument expand into a glaring canary in the coal mine, signaling the impending collapse of an entire legacy industry.
It is a masterful synthesis of sociology, psychology, and corporate mechanics. Quiet Beef forces us to look past the superficial noise of the tabloids and examine the rotting structural foundations beneath them.
Let's trace the arc of what we've uncovered today, because it completely reorients how we have to interact with the world.
Let's do it.
We started with the terrifying epistemological reality that objective truth is often a total illusion, easily crushed and overwritten by the synchronized narratives of institutional megaphones.
We learned that trusting the consensus is often just trusting the loudest voice.
Exactly. From there, we explored the incredible arrogance of human judgment. We recognize that every person is a 7,000 trillion-page novel, and we must resist the urge to condemn an entire life based on a single, isolated paragraph.
We looked at the terrifying architecture of the digital age, the two-way era, where social platforms bypass our logic and allow millions of lizard brains to hurl amygdala direct fastballs at our digital doorsteps.
Yeah, that visual of the fastball is going to stick with me.
And we learned the cognitive defense of realizing that the mob isn't offering a critique, it's just a biological reflex.
But most importantly, we arrived at the root cause of the chaos. We looked past the musicians fighting in the orchestra pit to see the empty conductor's podium. Right. We saw how the death of a shared cultural baseline has made direct conflict resolution impossible, leaving us entirely dependent on a class of corporate managers who are too busy protecting their own hazard pay to actually mediate the environment.
It forces a total shift in perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
The next time you, the listener, see a massive public scandal trending on your feed, what will your role be? Will you give in to the evolutionary urge, let your amygdala take over, and hurl a fastball at the individual whose name is flashing in the headline?
Or will you take a breath, look past the manufactured noise, and ask yourself the only question that matters? Who is the invisible conductor that set up these chairs in the first place, and why are they hiding?
It asks us to demand accountability from the systems, rather than just punishing the individuals trapped within them.
Absolutely.
But I want to leave you with one final, deeply lingering thought to turn over in your mind as you go back to your own workplace or navigate your own community. Quiet Beef made a compelling, almost undeniable case that direct, face-to-face conflict resolution is dead because our society is too deeply fractured by class, generation, and ideology.
The shared baseline is gone.
We can't just knock on our neighbor's door to hash things out over a beer anymore. The power dynamics make it too dangerous. And he also demonstrated that the institutions we are now entirely reliant upon to mediate those conflicts, the HR departments, the corporate executives, the property managers, are completely broken, paralyzed by cowardice, and focused solely on self-preservation.
So true.
So if we're no longer allowed to talk to each other directly, and if the management standing between us is utterly incapable of managing, where do we, as everyday people, turn to solve our most basic human conflicts?
It's the ultimate question.
If the trombone is hitting the bassoon, and the conductor refuses to move the chairs, are we destined to just sit in the orchestra pit, gritting our teeth in the dark, waiting for the music to stop? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.